Donald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank Penny with NETGEAR. Today's host is our very good friend, Jordan Cooper, and he is their Key Strategic Account Manager, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box so that Jordan will be able to answer them at the end of today's presentation. Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time and being with Microcom today. We greatly appreciate it. I am finished for now, so please go ahead and take it on over.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thanks so much, Julie. Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to learn a bit more about NETGEAR. Done quite a few of these presentations, so there's going to be some similarities here, but the one thing that I wanted to highlight and go over on this presentation was just where NETGEAR fits in the market. You know, it's come across that so many times I get asked the question of where does NETGEAR fit? I still get oftentimes people asking me if we still do consumer or if we what we do in the business side of the part of networking. And so I always just felt strongly that reiterating where we fit and how we play with others into the market space gives everybody a good idea of where our position is and where we can be utilized. So right off the bat, you know, the biggest thing that our new CEO really wanted to drive home and really do with our brand is just to elevate it. We are not just a consumer brand anymore that you can buy on Amazon, Best Buy, or Walmart. You know, although that is a big portion of our business, we actually have a bigger, larger portion of our business is going to be in the business space. When looking at our product portfolio, our CEO had the idea of, hey, we look to be like an enterprise brand, but can we really compete with the enterprise folks? And so we'll talk about here how we kind of compete with those other enterprise or tier one companies out there, and how exactly like what it says right here, we're built to compete in price, but we're built to compete as far as reliability, performance, speed, but we're priced to win and be at like a fraction of the cost. So let's see here. So the reality is I wanted to highlight the pain points that customers are feeling today, because now it seems more crucial than ever to talk about this because of everything that's going on in the marketplace, right? All IT leaders, not just enterprise, but all IT leaders, if you're needing any type of networking hardware, you're going to be facing these types of situations and challenges when it comes time to doing a network refresh. And so your customers are going to be facing this challenge, and that's what you guys are aiming to kind of help solve. First off, is the skyrocketing costs. We know that there's some big costs incoming and is currently in the midst, and if it hasn't been yet implemented, it is being implemented, about the RAM and the memory shortage and the price increase going on there. You know, this whenever there's an increase in price or an increase in cost on those things, or a market short, NETGEAR is usually a solid alternative because it makes people turn to other brands that they may not have been looking at before. When we're talking about a vendor lock-in, right, there are other tier one brands out there that really tie you into licenses and contracts, where that's not what NETGEAR does. We know that the operational complexity, there's a lot of things when it comes time to networking, not just on the networking side, but maybe on the wireless side, maybe on the security side. And you know, a lot of these businesses will have a hybrid and have kind of this complex, all different brands, all different kind of companies. You know, one switch is one brand, and access point is another, and security is another, and pretty soon you've got this whole mixed hybrid environment that is just not easy to manage. And then when it comes time to the deployments and taking things to be delivered, there are a lot of manufacturers out there that have some large lead times, and we can probably anticipate lead times increasing even longer for a lot of the manufacturers out there because of this chip and RAM memory shortage going on there. So we know that this is the pain point. This is the situation that we're finding ourselves in today. The next thing about how NETGEAR is going to be able to solve that, you know, we've got a lot of things under our belt with doing in the enterprise business for now over 30 years. There are a lot of things that we do that we're going to do similarly that's going to sound familiar to like the tier ones, you know, starting with the cloud managed simplicity. If you haven't checked out NETGEAR's cloud management platform, you absolutely should. I've done quite a few webinars discussing it and how it's really changing the game as far as cloud management and subscription costs, and not tying you into licenses. Doesn't require any additional hardware, things like that. We also are up to speed on the latest and greatest with Wi-Fi 7. It seemed like Wi-Fi 6 came and went so fast, but yep, we are already on Wi-Fi 7, and even talks of Wi-Fi 8 even coming down the pipe. But Right now, Wi-Fi 7 is the cutting edge and the fastest of the fastest that you can get right now, and NETGEAR is on board and is right there with it in the line. Fully managed switches. This is always a fun one to show because not everybody knows that this is what we do. And we do offer fully managed switches anywhere from, your single 1 gigs, 10 gigs, 25 gigs, all the way even up to 100 gig switches that we do. We got fully managed layer 3 switches that oftentimes that's where we are really competitive in terms of performance and reliability and speed with the tier 1 brands. And then, of course, shouldn't come to anybody's surprise, 24/7 support, right? That is huge when it comes time to being able to call yourself, I think, an enterprise grade company. Being able to offer support when you need it with next business day replacement. Those are the things that people expect. And honestly, if you think about what really makes an enterprise company enterprise, that's a funny word to really describe a business because there's nothing really definitive that says, oh, this is enterprise, this is not. But when you think of enterprise companies such as like the Cisco, Meraki's, HPEs, and Arubas, and things like that, Ruckus, Extreme, they all have a lot of these things in common, right? They all have some sort of cloud management. They all are on top of it with the latest and greatest with the Wi-Fi. They have very fast, very strong switches, and they've got great support. And boom, that's exactly what NETGEAR does. If you wanted to look, we put a little side-by-side comparison together, just trying to get a good little overview of how we compare against the competition. And this is what I was just referring to when we think of what makes a company enterprise. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Performance, top of the line, 10 gig, 25 gig, 100 gig switches with the latest Wi-Fi 7. A lot of these guys also offer the Wi-Fi 7 with even up 100 gig. Reliability, that's another big one. That's what customers come to know and trust when it comes time to the tier 1 brands, is they're just reliable, they work. Well, that's no exception with NETGEAR as well. We do 99.999% uptime SLA, which is on par for everybody else. And that's what you should be expecting when it comes time to an enterprise brand company. If you're going to spend the type of money and you're going to buy something like a Cisco Meraki, you would expect to not only have the fastest, but you'd have the best uptime and support. And that's where it comes in right here too. We got pro support, which is going to be on par with the Meraki support right there, the SmartNet. We've got 24/7 like with Ruckus, HPE, and Extreme, all offer 24/7. Again, the type of support that you would come to expect when you're looking for an enterprise grade brand. Then when it comes time to warranty, another big factor is how the warranty is really what differentiates, I feel, enterprise from SMB manufacturers. Can you stand behind your product? And with our warranty, we're right up there, par for the course with everybody else on the tier 1s with a limited lifetime warranty. The limited lifetime warranty, I'll clarify, is what that means is it doesn't just end when the product goes end of life. After the product goes end of life, we will also warranty it for another 5 additional years on top of that. Generally, NETGEAR's rule of thumb is we try to end of life stuff from about every 5 to 7 years. If you are familiar with our M4300 series line, this was an active line for almost 10 years before we end of lifed it for how long it was. And we didn't end of life it only because just how long it's been and how they were getting a little long in the tooth. They're still running fantastic and still running great. But limited lifetime, so you can expect NETGEAR to be, probably 10 years, 5 years minimum, upwards of 10 to maybe even 15 years, depending on how fast we end of life a product. And it goes without saying that we should all know that network refreshes should happen about every 5 years or so, anywhere from 3 to 7 years. Is common. You don't want to be pushing more than 7 years, but no worries when it comes time to NETGEAR is the warranty. It's going to be warranted throughout that time. However, where we differentiate is going to be the TCO, or what we refer to that as the total cost of ownership, right? When you're looking at like Cisco's Meraki with their licensing or their controller costs with Ruckus or these other HPs and Arubas, they can get quite costly. And when you're looking at over a 3-year, even a 5-year ownership, NETGEAR is going to be far significantly less expensive than the other enterprise grade companies up there. So I guess the key takeaways on this slide is that while we are able to match in performance, reliability, and support, and all those things that you would expect to see with those enterprise grade companies, we're able to do so at a much, much lower TCO. And that's what differentiates NETGEAR when it comes time to these competitors. Looking next at the next one, let's see here. Now, another good common question that I get a lot too, that I see a lot of is whenever we get quotes, a lot of us will get quote requests. People come to us just looking to buy a product, and that's always great to whenever customers are saying, hey, can you quote me on this, or how much would it be to buy it from you from this, is saying, here you go, here's your quote, have a great day. And that's a very common thing to fall into. However, really the best approach to do, and when you're doing it in that case, is when you provide a customer with just a quote with what they're looking for, they still have two options. And that option is to buy it or not to buy it. Those are the two options. However, adding just a little bit of language to the bottom of those emails when you're responding to quotes, adding just a little snipping. What I like to also include is saying something along the lines of, hey, here's your quote. Take a look at it. Also, I'm happy to provide quotes for comparable products that may offer a more competitive price point. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in as well. And what that does is that keeps the door open so that no door doesn't fully close. The option is, hey, here's the option A is what you want me to quote. And option B is, let me know if there's another thing that I can quote that can be comparable. Because if they look at the price point and they're going to say, ooh, that price point is a little bit up there, especially when it comes time to these enterprise grade companies, then the reality is they can just sit there and walk away because of the price point. But if you say, hey, there's another option out there, they can say, oh yeah, you know what, that price point is a little bit high. What alternatives do you have? That would beg the question. You say you have another comparable product that may offer more competitive price point. What is that product? If it can do what I'm looking for it to do and it can save me some money, sure. That's when that opens the door to really have those value-added conversations without being pushy or without trying to sound like you're trying to push a specific product. So, and then lastly here, I just put this kind of one-pager to reiterate what we do again and how to engage NETGEAR. Remember that NETGEAR is always here for you, as well as the Microcom support team is always there to support you as well. But we're happy to support in any aspect, whether that's with like heat mapping or whether that's with you need help trying to decide what product. You say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm wanting to rebuild out my switching rack, and I just need some help on maybe what switch with NETGEAR to go with and seeing if you can fit. That's something that NETGEAR absolutely can help with for sure. And we do offer deal registrations that's going to be done through Microcom. So if you guys have large enough product through them, you can register that they can register the deal with NETGEAR if it meets the qualifications. If you also need, we also offer a free proof of concept or a eval or demo unit. So if you want to try to put something together and see if it really fits and meets the needs, tell us with what it is that you're working on, and let's see if we can get you a demo unit or something to show you that we can do exactly what we say and what we put our money where our mouth is type of thing. So that's to wrap it up here. Again, if you wanted to wrap that up, where does NETGEAR fit? Well, we're a competitor to the enterprise grade companies in performance, reliability, support, all those things you expect out of the enterprise grade company, but we don't compete with them on the price point because we're far significantly less expensive than those guys. We compete probably in price point more closer, if you wanted to put it, more with like the Ubiquities, the TP-Links, the D-Links, the Zyxels, those type of companies out there. We're not at that price point because, again, we offer enterprise grade reliability, support, performance, and that comes at an additional cost, but we're much more closer to those guys. So that's where we fit. Hopefully, this webinar kind of gave you a better idea of where NETGEAR plays. We play in all spaces, anywhere from SMB all the way to enterprise. Even if you're from your little mom and pop shop, one access point and a little 8-port switch for the whole entire site, all the way up to enterprise grade companies. We've done lots of deals with government. We do lots of deals with, there's a company out there called Hawkeye. If you're not familiar with Hawkeye, it's not the Avenger, but it is Hawkeye, which is a Sony-owned company, which basically does instant replays for a lot of the sports that you saw in the NFL, NBA, MLB. Anytime that they're doing like an instant replay to re-show whether they were out of bounds or whether their foot was on the line or whatnot, that's going to be through Sony or Hawkeye's technology, and we're in there and they're using us. So that's just another great example of, if you want to be enterprise, if there's anybody who's going to be more enterprise than that, it's going to be those people who are doing a live show and things can't fail. So anyway, Julie, I think that's about done with my time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for that presentation. It was great. And yes, of course, I do have some questions for you. Let's get started with the first one. Here we go. What trends can you tell us about in networking that you may be most excited about? Is there anything like that you're excited about right now with trends?
Oh man, there's quite a lot of things going on as far as trending goes. We're getting into an era where multi-gig is starting to become really the normal and the new standard. Gigabit is still there prevalent, but it's not as trendy. Multi-gig access points all these devices are going to be more and more data heavy, and so making the increased use of multi-gig coming in. Another trend is PoE++ that we're seeing. This is ultra PoE, which means it can deliver up to 90 watts of PoE power. And this is just new technology that's coming that's going to be talking about lighting and sound and things like that. Buildings are being built that with the lights are being powered via switch and can be, powered and run through, and the sound and speakers all be running through the switch. So that's really exciting and see that trend. And then of course our good old AI is coming up, and there's a lot of exciting things that we're seeing that NETGEAR is doing with AI stuff, and we're on the forefront of there. It's a lot of exciting things.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That does sound exciting. And I'm sure that in our subsequent webinars coming up, you're going to be talking about this more and more. We're looking forward to that. Next question here for you. It's regarding product development. Can you give us an idea of perhaps what role do customers' insights play that ultimately result in product development?
Yeah, what a great and unique question, and I appreciate whoever had asked that question. That's one thing that I feel like NETGEAR has always done differently than other networking manufacturers out there, is we've really listened to customers' needs and wants. I've been on many calls that we bring on customers, end users, or even partners or resellers or whoever it be, whoever has some suggestions or some things that would be a better way to improve. I know no other company out there that where you can grab an engineer, grab a PLM who actually is the one who influences and decides what's going to be the next upfront, features or products or availability, things like that are done through the PLM. And NETGEAR is a company we widely invite everybody who has an idea of a way to improve or add an additional to our product portfolio to bring it up with us, so to let us know and to jump on a call. It's awesome to see our PLMs are often on calls with our PLMs and with our customers and with partners to talk about that. So yeah, absolutely. Do we listen and do we take that into consideration? 100%, so much so that we put them in the line with the direct people to make the decision. It's not just something we say, oh yeah, okay, that's good information, I'll pass that along. It's no, let's put that and let's have you talk to somebody. Let's see if this is something that they've thought about and what are the challenges in doing so. And maybe even if it's something that they want to do and they want to implement, do a beta test and work with them on getting a beta test out to you. So love to the company that I work for that we do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's good to know. Next question here for you. This is regarding product categories. The question is, can you share any upcoming product categories or technologies that NETGEAR is exploring?
This will be a little bit difficult for me to say without spilling out too much, but I alluded to a little bit of information. There's some things like
absolutely.
Our cloud management is getting quite a bit of a facelift and should be being released here in the next month or so. I feel like that's okay for me to share. I think that's been, it may even also be publicly known, but if not, now that it's going through a little bit of a facelift. It's going to go and become a little bit more enterprise look. The people who are working on our platform right now, they come from these enterprise tier one, the Cisco, the Ruckus, and the Aruba. There are a lot of software engineers who are coming in and saying that, well, this is what it needs to look like, and it needs to do, and it needs to how to navigate and things like that. So I've seen some betas of it, and it's looking really, really sweet and really awesome. So that's probably one right there. And then I kind of mentioned on the slideshow, Wi-Fi is coming down the pipe. That is true. As far as when to expect something like that, I probably within the next year and a half or 2 years, I think Wi-Fi 8 will be coming out. Obviously, it's going to be more introduced as a home market, and then the business market will be catching up later on because not as many businesses want to switch to the latest technology right when it comes out, as the need's not quite there and it might be a little bit more expensive. But you have your gamers and those people at home who want the fastest and always keeping up with there. So Wi-Fi is another one that's coming down the pipe that we're working on as far as product development goes.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And of course, you share, of course, only what you can, not everything. We understand, no problem. Of course, no stepping over the line, right? Okay, next question here. Let's see. How does NETGEAR ensure device security and privacy for users?
Ooh, what a beautiful and wonderful question. Yeah, obviously implementing the latest security protocols like WPA3 inside of our wireless access points is going to be critical for doing something like that. You know, we're also not a Chinese company anymore. You know, there are those companies out there that are in a little bit of hot water right now, without naming names, that have a big security flaw, and then a lot of information is being outsourced back to China. And you know, that's something that NETGEAR does not do. And then, of course, you know, multi-factor authentication is something that we're implementing, and I think we have fully implemented across the board, across all of our platforms when it comes time to logging in, like through our cloud management, and being able to have those types of security protocols in place is crucial. And then, of course, I mean, that's what just NETGEAR is doing. The number one best way to make sure that the security is the good old saying, you are the firewall, right? Making sure we're not clicking on links and making sure our passwords are safe and things like that. But that's as far as what NETGEAR is doing, is keeping up with the latest securities.
Thank you for that, Jordan. Last question here. And this is regarding like customer service and maybe technical support as well. What improvements are underway to enhance those two items that are, you know, like I said, customer service and tech support? What may be enhancing that experience with NETGEAR?
Yeah, that was a big I know a subject to talk about with our CEO, and with a lot of things that we could improve. At one point in time, a long time ago, it was a US-based 24/7 support. Some executive the idea was obviously to take it offshore. Support really kind of fell a little bit through the wayside, but I'm happy to say with this new CEO, he's brought on every executive who was with NETGEAR is essentially now gone. Whole new teams have come in and with new, better ideas, and that's one thing that was talked about, was make sure that our support is back to what it was. So I'm happy to say that our support either should be, as of right now, or is in the midst of currently being all transitioned to US-based support, 24/7 support. They're kind of the technical support / customer service type support. They deal with all things when it comes time to post services. So, you know, usually that's where customer support comes in, whether to say, hey, I want to talk about the product and how great it is, or maybe they had a bad experience because of a bad egg, if you will, of a product. And then they also handle all things tech support related, making sure you guys' networks are up and running and remaining as constant and fast, as great as possible. So that's what we're working on, and it should be fully implemented. I'm happy to report that.
Thank you, Jordan, so much for all of that. We greatly appreciate you answering those questions for us today. And also thank you to everyone who joined today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please remember that this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so we can all view it again, which I do from time to time. I like to do that. Jordan, thank you so very much for being with us. And until next time, everybody have a fantastic day.
Thanks, everybody.